What you're watching on screen right now is the intro shot to my WWE SummerSlam Vegas animation. This single shot is what started the conversation with WWE that eventually led to freelance work and a retainer working on some of the biggest shows in the company. It caught their attention not because it just looked cool, but because it showed how I think about systems, how I think about scalability, and storytelling inside of sports advertising. Let's go ahead and hop into the breakdown of how I made it. Very quickly, before we get into the breakdown, make sure you go and get a motion hat on motiondirective.com/shop. Obviously, this is my motion design studio, so if you want to go and support everything that we're doing on this channel, you can go and support us by getting a motion hat. Obviously, see it's a speed graph. If you really know, the logo is a speed graph. Yeah, that's a little insider knowledge if you're a motion designer. But we also have hats that say motion. You'll see them on the screen here. Quick plug there, but make sure to check it out. It is a great way to support us. So SummerSlam in Vegas is immediately going to point towards gambling. We really wanted to lean into that high stakes feeling. So instead of like opening up the piece with like a logo shot or a hype montage, I wanted the match itself to feel like it was live. So an energetic craps dice roll was sort of the idea here, to open up the piece feeling live and dynamic. So we are in Cinema 4D here for the dice roll simulation, and everything is going to start with these dice here. After a bunch of variations, the randomness really matters. So this is set up with a rigid body simulation and initial key velocities. This is not hand animated. If the dice felt staged, this concept was completely gonna fall apart. There was past variations where that was the case and it did fall apart. The energy wasn't there. I'm gonna go ahead and play the animation of the dice so you can see it within the camera, and then I'm going to come outside and see it from the craps table on the top. So since it's a simulation and it's not actually baked, I can't pause and go on a certain frame of this animation. But what I can do is go on, say, this view so we can at least see the rotations happening a little bit. So as you can see, we have the blue dice on the left and the orange dice on the right. These colors are going to play into the card colors that are being pulled in the transition shot that is right after this. The dice design is pretty simple. Obviously, it's just an emissive texture on the actual numbering, and then it's specular glass on the dice body. So as you can see here, each of them has a initial linear velocity here on the rigid body tag. Now each of them is slightly different because it took some tweaking to get here in the exact positioning that I wanted. But as you can see here, right here on the -299, -296, that's clearly the animation of it shooting towards the camera. So to get it to shoot towards the camera, that's where that animation is happening. And when I zoom out, you'll be able to see when I play it from the start, that animation of it shooting out is because of those values, 296 being -296 or -299. That little bit of variation on -11 and -13 here is just that little bit of tweaking like we were talking about. So with the camera, there's a little bit of animation that's helping. You can see there's a little bit of focal length animation that I was also doing to make the roll seem a lot more grand than it was. We're at a 25mm focal length right here at the start. And then 14 frames in, we get to 40 on the millimeter length. And then it goes back down a little bit, so it gets a little bit wider, and then it goes back to 40. Obviously, I'm playing through, you can't see the dice, but it's essentially animated towards the simulation's randomness. So just pulling up the Redshift render view here, you can clearly see that the camera is definitely accustomed to where the simulation ended up, and I have my focal length and my actual focal distance very customized to where this simulation ended up. As you can see, it's very much in focus, but I am also animating that depth of fields like crazy to keep that focus. As you can see, this dope chart is crazy. It's basically making selections to make sure that as it's flying through, it's staying in focus. All right, now that this is playing inside of the preview, I wanted to go ahead and mention that this shot is designed as a transition. So this shot is supposed to bring us into another shot. So the way that the dice is flying towards the camera, it's sort of whipping right at the end. As you can see, whip. I'm gonna pause it here, but when it whips across very fast, it's basically gonna give us this inertia to cut on for our next shot. So it's important to mention that we're going from left to right, and we're gonna want to go from left to right in our next scene. And also we're gonna match cut on some of this color. Moving on to the next scene, we see that we have Roman being that blue and Brock Lesnar being that orange yellowish color. So immediately we're showing that there's a connection between shot 1 and shot 2, not only with the whipping that we're doing, it's not just random, it's also the color matching that we're doing. The dice were representing the colors that are on the cards. After breaking that down, it's important to sort of break down exactly what's happening here. This may look really wild, but we basically have like a cube of cards, and essentially each one of these cards has a different wrestler on it. So it's a system, if you can tell, and each one of these wrestlers sort of has the ability to get called and pulled out of the deck per se. That plays into the randomness of the simulation at the front part of the promo. This is pitched as a system, as I mentioned before, not just a cool video. So as you can see, we have Logan Paul here, we got Randy Orton, we got Seth Rollins, and we got one design where it is the gold trim and one design where it's the blue trim. So this shot is set up in a really cool way where basically we have a plane effector with a spherical field having a perimeter of 180. So when it passes through the cards, it basically affects the cards to do this flipping animation. Now the two that were actually going to get selected purposely were taken out of this so that they can completely turn over as the other cards go completely through and they don't make their full rotation. This was especially animated like this so that the focus was on the only two that were here, but we have this whole setup where things are moving in the back for this depth, because depth is very important in these shots. These cloners in the back, if you see them moving, that's just the offset moving them, the offset animation. And in terms of getting the cards, like actually to have the animations of each of these people, obviously these were comps made in After Effects, and I brought them into Cinema and essentially put them on one half of the card and then had the other half of the card have a traditional card back. Now when the plane effector passes through the cards that are going to get selected, the one that the camera is focused on right here, they do this pull out, and basically these bendiformers essentially bend them back, and that's these bendiformers right here. So what that is doing is it's essentially making these cards feel more realistic, and when they go all the way through the motion, they overlap and follow through, and then they turn in. And basically what this is doing is it's giving us a little bit of depth right before we leave the shot. So we have that realistic animation from the follow through, from the bend, how cards kind of would act even if they are sort of getting magically pulled, and then we sort of canter in to get a little bit more depth before the shot completely ends and the camera goes away. So in final, you have a shot that looks like this, and honestly I think this transition follows a lot of really cool tie-in techniques with the color and with the motion of how it is cutting on action. Right after this shot ends, actually, as you can see right there, I paused it, we have this sort of shuffling to the right side, and that brings on this 2D comp scene that we'll get into in the next video. For now, we're going to hop into After Effects to see how it comped these two shots together and break down the transition of how to match cut that action. Alrighty, so pulling up this shot in After Effects, I have the comp here, and I'm gonna break down exactly what I did to just sort of enhance this and cut it together. Okay, so the setup is very simple for this transition. Essentially, we have a CC radial fast blur right at the point where this dice makes contact with the camera and it gets the most blurry is the point where we cut the most blur, which is actually forced here with this CC radial blur. Now you can also see that we have two layers here, not just one layer. One is a deeper blur, and then basically we're drawing a mask over top. That's this little circle thing right here. We're doing a mask that doesn't have as much, if not any. As you can see, it's turned off here. So with it on, everything's blurred. With it off, nothing's blurred. But that allows us to have a finer field of focus inside of After Effects. As you can see, when we turn on the top layer and we include these animations here with these keyframes, we have a very quick super blur to not super blurred. Then we have that blur vignette, and that's basically all that we're doing in After Effects to make the transition happen as smooth as possible. So if we just play it from the top, it's exactly what we saw in the 3D programs, as you can see, just with that CC radial fast blur. Also, it's important to note before we end this off that this entire system, as you can see, Logan Paul and Randy Orton slightly making an appearance right there. It does have placement for more advertisements in the future. So this is a system that has more cards and more promos available to pitch. That is the breakdown for the intro shot. This will be a multi-part series, so I will be breaking down the rest of the promo. It is very in-depth how I get, so I don't want to make super long videos. I want to give a lot of good value in a nice concise video. And if that means stretching out a promo into multiple versions, I'm okay with that. I don't want to gloss over any of the minute details that I may gloss over if I do it all in one video. So with that being said, I just want to close out by saying this promo is not built as a one-off animation. It's built as a proof that I can build systems. If you're interested in how high-level sports systems get built like this for advertising, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be breaking down the rest of this piece and many more pieces as this channel progresses. If you watched this far in the video, thank you so much. Make sure you go to motiondirective.com/shop, buy a hat for the holidays, turn on those post notifications, and I will see you in the next video.